Welcome to the Holy Sparks podcast. Our mission is to illuminate the brightest lights in the Jewish world and beyond so that we elevate the Holy Sparks within us and make the world around us a better place. I'm your host, Saul K. Grab a cup of tea, your favorite beverage, sit back and relax, and enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Holy Sparks podcast. I am so excited about our first guest. Without further ado, let me introduce him properly. Rabbi Josh Warshawsky is a nationally touring Jewish musician, songleader, composer, and educator who has shared his original melodies and teachings with over 150 Jewish communities throughout the United States, Canada, the UK, and Israel. Josh seeks to build intentional praying communities and composes melodies to open up new possibilities for understanding the deep meaning of the words of our tradition. He was ordained in May 2019 from the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in LA. Rabbi Josh is a sought-after teacher. He served as the rabbi-in-residence of the Solomon Schechter Day School of Metropolitan Chicago from 2020 to 2023 and is a core educator of Songleader Boot Camp. He has spent the last 22 summers at Camp Ramah in Wisconsin and the last 11 summers teaching and performing at Ramah camps across the country. He's released 5 albums of Jewish music and has been featured on 8 anthology publications. Originally from Deerfield, Illinois, Josh spent the last decade in New York, LA, and Israel. He now lives in Columbus, Ohio with his wife Adina and their beautiful daughter Jonah. Josh's mission statement is to help people find a spiritual and meaningful home for themselves in order to live lives filled with purpose. He is guided and motivated by his belief that human beings are spiritual seekers and meaning makers. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Josh Warshawsky. Oh, let's go. Louder in the back. In the back. Let's go. Let's go. That's how we do it. That's how we do it.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for that.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so.
I've never gotten applause coming into a Zoom room before. It's been.
I recommend listening to that daily. Just when you get out of bed, just put it on. I mean, there's a famous saying from the Talmud that when you get out of bed and put your feet on the floor, 10,000 angels erupt into applause. So I always like to imagine them in a stadium. So welcome, my friend. Really good to see you. And I'm so excited to introduce you to a new and growing audience and to see where this goes. So did I miss anything in your intro? I just wanted to make sure I covered all the bases there.
That was pretty great. It's nice to get the intro and the mission statement, the bio and the mission statement too. That's important to me. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know what? Since this is the very first episode of the Holy Sparks podcast, let's say Shehachianu because it is the first. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Now,
Amen.
in case you've never heard that prayer before and you aren't familiar with the Hebrew, that's basically thanking God for bringing us to this season, to this moment. And it's a great thing to say when you do something for the first time. So thank you for that. And with that, let's start at the top. Tell everyone a little bit about how you grew up and your early years of Jewish life.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's pretty exciting to be first guest. I'm so happy to be here with you. I hope we get at some point to talking about where we met and all that good stuff too. But I grew up in the Chicago suburbs at a conservative Jewish synagogue. And a family that we went to synagogue every week. And I went to a Jewish day school, and I loved getting to be in the community that I grew up in. It was a synagogue that did not have a cantor. So when I was growing up, the services were just led by whoever happened to be volunteering that week. So we got experience with a lot of different people leading, and I got to see my dad and others would get up to the bima, to the center, the center to lead, and it was a really wonderful way to learn a lot of different melodies. I feel like I kind of learned the melodies and the leadership of our tradition just kind of by osmosis, just sitting in the pews. I loved it. I loved Jewish music. I loved the Hebrew language. I would run around the halls at my day school singing a lot of music all the time. I was in the fourth and fifth grade choir with an incredible music teacher. Her name was Roz Epstein, and she taught me like the basic classics of our Jewish canon: holiday music, Israeli folk music, all these things that sort of started as the foundation of my Jewish musical background. And it was from there that I began to love getting to sing and play and love Jewish text and the words of our tradition.
Wow, I love it. So wait a second. There was no cantor at your shul.
Yeah.
So it was lay led essentially, is what you're saying?
We
Yeah.
had a rabbi, but nobody led the musical aspects of the service, just various different lay people. Yeah,
Okay. And then I'm guessing no instruments at that time in history
that's
also.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about some of your early musical influences.
I was a kid growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, so like the era of all that like acoustic singer-songwriter pop. And also I didn't know so much Jewish music. So the Jewish music of my childhood was, as I mentioned, like Israeli folk music and holiday music, and then like Debbie Friedman, Rick Recht, Craig Taubman, and Shlomo Carlebach. That was like what I that was what I knew of Jewish music at the time. So that those were the ones that I first listened to. I saw Debbie Friedman in concert when I was a kid. Rick Recht came to my summer camp. I knew the music of Craig Taubman sort of implicitly, but didn't know it was his because nothing had attributions at my synagogue when we were growing up. People just sang melodies. So that was just how I was just immersed in it from the beginning without really knowing where much of it came from.
Oh, interesting. And so it sounds like a lot of your early, musical influences were really from the Jewish tradition. Or did you ever have a moment in your life where you thought, yeah, maybe I will be a rock star. Maybe, maybe that's my path.
I don't think I ever had a moment where I thought I was going to be a rock star. I started playing guitar when I was 10 years old because my dad picked up a guitar at age 40 to play for my mom's birthday, and I thought that was cool. So I picked up a guitar also and started taking lessons. And I would play like all those singer-songwriter songs, and I loved that like Dave Matthews Band and John Mayer and Death Cab for Cutie and all those kind of music. But I never really imagined that it was going to go anywhere. I wrote like angsty teen pop songs when I was a kid. But I really just I liked singing and I liked playing. I would bring my guitar to camp, but I didn't never think that was going to be something that I was going to do with my life.
So interesting. Yeah, we share all three of those influences for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me about like obviously you went to Ramah summer camp as a kid, but where was there a moment or particularly a person that sort of turned on the switch for you where you thought, maybe I will become a rabbi? Was there a moment or was it a gradual progression for you?
I think it was a little bit of both. When I was in college, I went to the Jewish Theological Seminary for undergrad. They have a joint program with Columbia University. It's called List College. So I went there because I went to Jewish day school, I went to Jewish high school, and I went to Camp Ramah, and I loved getting to study and be immersed in our tradition, and I wanted to keep going. I didn't want it to end. So I went there for school, and it's right in the middle of New York City, so they send out job opportunities in the area of different synagogues that need this or that. And there was a synagogue in South Orange, New Jersey that was looking for a Hebrew school music teacher. And I said, oh, well, I play guitar and I went to Jewish summer camp. I could probably do that. So I started as the music teacher at Bethel in South Orange, New Jersey. And I loved getting to play with the kids. I loved getting to lead tefillah and lead prayer and get to sing with all of them. But again, my influences were just a few musicians. So I thought that was really all that Jewish music was. Um, and that first year, Craig Taubman came to the synagogue to do a concert, and I got to prepare the kids with all of his music and get to sing with him on stage. And that was where I thought, wow, this is really cool that there are people who really do this and go around to different places and sing. And then at the same time, I began to start writing my own Jewish music because I didn't know that there was so much Jewish music out there. I said, oh, here's a prayer in the Siddur that I wish had a new melody. I'll just write one, I guess. So I tried to start writing music, and I was invited to come to this conference, this very small conference in St. Louis in 2010 called Songleader Boot Camp, which I think was where I met you for the first time at that very first one.
Yep.
And I was sort of exposed to this whole world of Jewish music and realizing that there's so much content and so much depth to it and so much beauty and all this whole community of people who are trying to do this work. And so I loved that. And then I also loved getting to study text and getting to apply some of this musical tradition, to use music as a medium to open people up to the words and the teachings of our tradition. So I decided that maybe rabbinical school might be a good direction. I didn't think that music was always going to be a part of it, that I was going to go out and be a professional musician, but I knew that I wanted to be able to teach and to share in rabbinic wisdom.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that was definitely a quintessential meeting of so many people, and it really like
Yeah,
launched so many careers. And I knew nothing of the sort of Camp Ramah world at that time, and that was kind of a nice bridge as well. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely shout out to SLBC, which is Songleader Boot Camp. If you're listening and you're not familiar, pioneered by Rick Recht. So amazing. Okay, so I know this may seem obvious because you grew up in the movement, but was there a conscious choice? Hey, I'm going to choose to align with the conservative movement in terms of my smicha, etc., as opposed to reform or orthodox, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was in undergrad at the Jewish Theological Seminary already. They have sort of one of the two flagship rabbinical schools, the conservative movement. And I was living in New York and really loving getting to be there. And so when I first applied to rabbinical school, I guess I only really applied to the Jewish Theological Seminary because I was living in New York and I really liked it. And I was already at the school and I was majoring in Talmud in my undergrad and Talmud and rabbinics. And I wanted to keep getting to study with the professors and teachers there. If it had probably been a few years later, I might have explored some of the other institutions. I didn't have so much familiarity with the Reform movement at that point. I started to get involved with Havana Shira, which is another Jewish music conference, a couple years after that, and getting to know and find a deep love and respect for that movement as well. And I had some friends who'd gone to Hebrew College in Boston, which is non-denominational, and the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College in Philly, but none of them were really totally aligned with the way that I was already embedded in that faith tradition and stream. So I only applied to JTS and I was enrolled there and I was very excited to get to go there, but I wanted to take a year off because um, 9 years, 4 years of undergrad and then 5 years of medical school all in one place felt like too long of a time to be in one place. So I was going to take a year off and do some music and teaching around New York. And a synagogue in Los Angeles reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be our artist in residence for a year?" And I said, "I don't know what that is." And they said, "Neither do we, but come out for a year and we'll figure it out." And so I went out there and I had such an amazing time with this community and fell in love with Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Jewish community and all the teachers and musicians and rabbis that were out there. I decided to switch and go to the Ziegler Rabbinical School, which is the conservative movement school out on the West Coast. It's got more of a West Coast style to it. That's where I ended up.
I love it. And this is something I was going to ask later in the interview, but since we're on topic, how do you see, since you're now in between and sort of moving throughout the different worlds, reform, conservative, how do you really see your role in terms of bridging, connecting, interaction of those worlds?
It's an interesting question because I travel to synagogues all over the country, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years at this point, 8 or 9 years or so. And last year was actually the first year I ever went to a Reform congregation for an artist in residence weekend. The conservative community were the people that I knew, and the rabbis who were already familiar with my work, and especially because I'd been going to the Ramah camps, which are all connected to the conservative movement. Those were just the communities that hired me, and I just recently have been able to get to go to some Reform communities also, and I think across the board, like I said in the mission statement, is that people are searching for meaning and they're searching for spirituality, and we have it in our tradition. It just sometimes needs to be translated because it's foreign, not just because it's in a Hebrew language, but because it's buried in texts or buried in wisdom that hasn't been opened up in many, many years, or buried in the Siddur that we read the same words every week. And how do we be able to find meaning and inspiration from them? So I'm hoping to help people begin to understand that the search that they have in their hearts can be found within our tradition. And that's reform, that's conservative, that's non-denominational, that's anybody I think can find wisdom here if they have the right person who's trying to share it with them. So I'm hoping to be able to be that person for as many communities and people as possible to help people find meaning in our tradition and use music as a medium to get there. It's a universal language.
I love it. I love it. There's definitely, I find that too. People are just, especially now, although I feel like I've been saying that for years, especially this year, people are hungry for spiritual growth, especially now. And then something else, especially now. So it's always now.
Yeah.
So talk about, for people that are unfamiliar with, what is life like as a traveling, rabbi, music song leader? What is a typical month like for you? Like kind of I know every month is different, but just in general, like what does it look like? So people can kind of see, hey, if I go down the Rabbi Josh route, here's what I can expect my life to look like a little bit.
Yeah. So when I chose this path, I had no idea what it was going to be like. I kind of made it up for myself. When I went to rabbinical school, I was assuming that I would go into a pulpit or to a day school or something. I didn't think that this would be a possibility. And I had a traditional rabbinic internship in Los Angeles where I was at a synagogue. It was really wonderful. I was working with an amazing Rabbi Richard Camrus at Shomrei Torah in West Hills. And it was just a really wonderful congregation and wonderful community. But I was also traveling to different communities all around the country at the same time. And I realized that there was something really powerful about getting to do that work. So my last year of rabbinical school, we were supposed to have another internship, and I was talking to my dean about all these thoughts that I was having, and he said, "Oh, why don't we make your internship traveling to communities around the country and see if that's something that you might want to consider in the rabbinate?" I said, "Can we do that?" And he said, "I'm the dean. We could do whatever we want." So my internship that year, I had a mentor in Los Angeles who was sort of processing everything with me, but I was traveling full time while I was finishing up school to communities all over. And I realized that that was how I wanted to start my rabbinate. So I was ordained in 2019, and I had about 8 months of traveling to communities all over. It was incredible. I was building amazing relationships and doing the work. And then it was March 2020, and everything got shut down. And I had about 2.5 years of trying to connect with communities virtually and sitting here in my basement, reaching out to as many people as I possibly could. And this year is the first year I feel like we're finally getting back to what it could look like to build and to get together in person and to sing. So most months I have one or two residencies in different communities. I like to travel. So I arrive on Thursdays, so that Thursday night we can gather with people in the community, not just on Shabbat. So it doesn't just feel like somebody drops in and then they leave. We get to sing some of the melodies and also just get to gather and feel what it's like to sing, because there's an energy that happens when you sing together in person. So just to feel that and immerse ourselves in it and share some of the melodies we're going to use that might be unfamiliar to people, so that by the time we get together on Shabbat, it already feels like they're coming from the community itself. And we're able to build from that and immerse ourselves in that. And that allows us to hopefully have those things be much more longer lasting than if I just drop in on Shabbat and then leave. But I have a lot of meetings to plan all those different weekends. I try and be very intentional and process oriented, chatting with rabbis and cantors and educators to make things be really as successful as they possibly can. I'm doing some teaching and things like that. And so I most of it is preparing to be able to serve and teach and doing some writing and sharing. But it's really exciting and a fascinating way to see and explore Jewish life all over the country.
I love it. So it sounds like about 2 weekends a month you're traveling, and the rest of the time you're home. And I also want to say Mazel Tov on becoming a father. I definitely
Thank
want to talk
you.
about that. How is that, how is that from a personal note? And then also, how has that affected the work that you do and you're envisioning, your lifestyle moving forward?
It's been really great. My daughter is 7 months old right now, and it's been the most wonderful and exciting, amazing experience. When she was born in July, I took some time off to just be together with our family and not get on a plane for about 8 weeks, and that was really special and wonderful. It was the first time I hadn't gotten on a plane in that long in a while, except for COVID. And before that, I was traveling about 2 or 3 weekends a month, and also to day schools around the country, so sometimes during the week also. So it was a lot. This year I decided I was going to do one residency a month plus the work that I'm doing at the day school in Chicago that you mentioned, where I'm there 2 or 3 days a month in person, doing some teaching and support on the side virtually besides that. And that felt pretty manageable. It's about 6 or 7 nights away a month. So next year and beyond, I'm hoping to keep it to about 2 weekends out of every six. It's like 1.5 a month, and be able to begin to build a community also virtually online with all the communities that I've been to, and be able to continue some of the teaching and learning together, to continue to build those relationships, to continue to engage in some of this conversation about how we can create meaning and be able to use some of these melodies to have some more time to sit and write and work. But it also means that, when I'm home, I'm really home. I don't have to be on the bima and in a pulpit. I get to be with my family and sit in the pews. My daughter's in daycare, but I have one day a week that's just my day. So we just go on adventures, and that's been a really special balance and choice that we've been able to make, which I'm really grateful for.
Sweet. Well, as a wise parent once told me right when I became a parent, he said, the days are long, but the years are short. So be as much time as you can with your kiddos. So that's
I
really
love
sweet.
that.
So let me ask you, I know everything's still new, and, you're newly a parent, and you're kind of like working out all the logistics of all that. But do you see yourself maybe at some point becoming a congregational rabbi, or do you feel like, what, this is my path I'm on, and Zag is in it?
I do. I think, I've been thinking about it for a few years now, and originally the goal was to do this for a couple of years and see what happens. I feel kind of like this is really the first year that we've been able to really jump into the work wholeheartedly because of COVID and because of the way that everything happened with my ordination just only 8 months before everything got shut down again. So this year was in some ways just year one.
Mm.
So I'm really excited and looking forward to getting to do this work for a couple more years. But I think the goal would be in the eventual model is to sort of flip the model where I'll be based in one community and building a prayer and music laboratory in that space where people can come and experience what it is that we're doing and the methodologies and the practice and the relationship building and the music, and then share out in different places and get to go back to their communities and do that. But also be able to build something long term as opposed to, go into one community and then leaving. I'm hopeful that those places that I go to will continue the things that we're doing, but to be able to be in one place and plant there and get to do that work long term, I think is really important. So I'm hoping a couple of years down the road that definitely is for sure in the cards.
I love it. All right, no job offers yet, people. Be patient. Be patient. He's not available yet, but soon, soon by you. No, that's really sweet, and I agree. I think that I mean, having toured in the secular world and Jewish world for years and years and years and years, like this whole one-off thing, like that's nice for a time. It's nice to kind of get your things together, but when you really want to cultivate community, you gotta like plant an anchor and then just develop those relationships, which take time and which take intentionality for sure.
I know you and Alana are doing that at a synagogue in the NorCal, right?
Yeah, we are. So, the show's about you, but just what Ilana does is she is the cantor at Peninsula Temple Bethel. It's a
Right.
reform shul here in Silicon Valley, San Mateo. And yeah, we do some work there. I do some work with my kids' day school, which has been just absolutely a delight for my heart
Wow.
to see my kids in the wild, because as a parent, you'll learn this. Like over time, whenever your daughter sees you, it's like she's instantly fixated on you. But now getting to see my kids like do their thing in the world and lead
That's really
prayer with
nice.
them is like, oh, it's just the greatest.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. So, but I've have found over the years that really, I mean, we've seen kids from preschool through B'nai Mitzvah now getting married and like having that depth and length of relationship is just really
Right.
a sweet thing. So, okay, but enough about me. Let's talk about you. So, tell me, like, what projects are you working on right now, and what's kind of coming up? What would you like to promote and tell people about?
So we just over the last year released two albums. We have Chavirai Nevarech Volumes 2 and 3. Um, the Chavirai Nevarech project, the words Chavirai Nevarech means friends, let us bless. They come from the Grace After Meals, Birkat Hamazon. And when we recorded the first album, we did it live because I really wanted to capture the energy and feeling of what it's like to build something together live musically. And it was really incredible. I had no idea what it was going to be like. And it was beyond. I gathered just very dear friends together to make music and to give gratitude and sing out. So we did that again for the next two albums. We recorded them. We're supposed to record in March 2020. We ended up having to pause and recorded it in May 2021. But those just came out. It was a whole 7-song album of just Shabbat songs, and then a couple other songs related to a variety of different themes and time periods. But Chavarayna Varech Volume 4 is in the works. We're working out some new melodies and figuring out when we're going to get together to do that. And I'm also thinking a lot about different kinds of ways to engage with some of the words of our tradition. I'm working on some hybrid psalms, which is in Psukei de Zimra, the morning service that we have every single morning. It's called Psukei de Zimra, is verses of song. And it's really just a bunch of different hybrid psalms, right? There's 150 psalms. And I think that there's sort of the breadth of all human emotion can be found within the psalms. And I believe that if we can read through them and find the ones that are meaningful for us for any particular emotion that we're feeling, we can allow ourselves to channel what we're feeling into those words, or to allow those words to help us express what it is that we're feeling in our hearts, which sometimes has difficulty getting out. So the ones we say in the morning for Psukei de Zimra have themes related to loyalty and kingship and truth and trust. And I was thinking, what would it be like if we could collect a new collection of hybrid psalms that are related to themes and emotions that we're actually feeling when we go about our day? Maybe there's a hybrid psalm on feeling excited because there's something big coming up in your life, or feeling nervous, or feeling alone. What would it be like if you could say one or two of those psalms as your Psukei de Zimra, as your verses of song for the morning that could orient you, set you on the right foot, and allow you to be the best version of yourself on any given day? So I wrote one when I was in rabbinical school, and I was very excited about it. The project sort of went on pause during COVID, but now I'm getting back into it and exploring all the emotions that are in the Psalms and trying to craft what it could look like to put them together in a meaningful way for Jews today.
Love it. And so you're taking the original text, but then recontextualizing it, or maybe adding some English as well to focus it on a particular, midot or emotion.
That's right. And I'm also rearranging some of the text in the same way, right? Some of the Psuke de Zimra is like a verse from this psalm and then a verse from this psalm and then a verse from this psalm put together on a variety of themes. So generally the psalms have like the first half is like, I'm feeling alone and scared and God sucks. And then the end of the psalm is like, oh, wait, maybe I can figure this out. Maybe I can do this. And there's a nice turn. But there's different emotions that are embedded along the way in most of the psalms. So I'm sort of taking pieces from here and pieces from there and putting them together in a way that creates sort of a new psalm project. But all of the words of our tradition, but then some new prose translations to them. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Um, Anything you'd like to play us from that? Get a sneak preview?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that. So this one was
Wait, is this the world debut of this song, ladies and gentlemen?
this is not the world debut.
Okay. The
This one
podcast
came out
debut.
on the podcast debut. It came out on volume 3. And it was that first hybrid psalm, the one that sort of started this project and idea for me. It's the only one that has a melody right now. And this was a hybrid psalm about feeling alone. It was something that our project assignment was to create your own hybrid psalm that could be used in some sort of pastoral setting. So it's about feeling alone and searching for comfort. It was very dear to my heart during the time when I was sort of stuck at my house for many years. I would think about it a lot, and that's actually when I wrote the translation for it that appears in the middle of the psalm. It sort of came through when we were feeling very far from each other. And it led me to hope that I can try and do that for a bunch of different hybrid psalms to add my own touch to the words of our tradition too. Adonai, Shema Tfilati v'shavati elecha tavo. Al taster panecha mimeni V'yom tsar li Hateh elai oznecha V'yom ekra maher aneini Al tirchak mimeni ki tzara krova ki ein ozer Achat shalti meit Adonai Ota vakesh shivti b'veit Adonai kol yemei chayai. Havayash, hear my prayer from the dark I cry out to you. I'm lost and weary and soaked from tears. I cannot see. Turn your ear to me in the day I call. Don't hide from me. You feel so far away from me, and I need you now. What will you say? What will I hear? One thing, just one thing I ask of you. One thing is all I desire, to feel you near, a home I'll build in you, now until the end. Shivti Adonai kol yemei chayai.
Beautiful. I love it. One of my teachers said that a song or a nigun is like this. Imagine a lake with the boat, and you start the tune, and you get in, and you start paddling, right? You start paddling, start paddling, start paddling, and you kind of get a little water on you, and you try to remember, how do you row again? Yeah, it's been since last summer since I rowed. And then you kind of getting out into the water, and then eventually by the end, you glide, and the ripples calm down, and you
Mm.
arrive. So I love adding as much space, silence as can be tolerated at the end of a nigun or a song. So it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I love it, man.
I love that. I love that imagery. Let the
So
ripples subside.
yeah, tell me if I can unpin you here. I think I know how to do this. Tell me, what do you think really that the Jewish world overall, what do we need now?
The world needs now. um,
Okay,
it's a
okay,
big.
okay. Hold on. I asked Noah Aronson and Craig Talman in my book that I wrote that question. They both say exactly the same thing. Oh, great
When
mind.
Craig came to that synagogue at Bethel in South Orange, New Jersey, he brought a young pianist with him, this guy named Noah Aronson, to play along with him. That was the first time I met Noah too.
There you
So,
go. Sweet.
all great people. I think that there's a lot of ways that I could take the answer to this question. And I believe that most of the foundation of it relates to the core mission statement that I'm thinking about, which is trying to find meaning and inspiration, um, because the work that we're doing in the world is really difficult. And the lives that we're living are hard, and the world today is a tough place to be. Not that it wasn't a tough place yesterday, it was differently tough. It was differently tough a year ago, 10 years ago. But right now, it's a really hard world to live in. And the only way that we can engage in the world and be the best version of ourselves is if we allow ourselves to take advantage of the greatest gift that the Jewish people ever received, which was Shabbat. Right? It's this moment of rest, this moment of recharge, this moment of reorienting ourselves and taking a pause. And so, I try and utilize that time and that space to give ourselves an opportunity to figure out what it is that we want to do in the world. I think that intention can be found in the Siddur, these words that we say every day. When I talk to kids in my day school about what prayer is all about, it's about setting an intention and grounding yourself and saying, who do I want to be today? And how can I help the world be who I want it to be today? And I think that if we can find a way to utilize our tradition to get us there, to provide us with meaning, with spirituality, with uplift, and with community, we can be the best version of ourselves in the world, and we can do the work that needs to be done. I think that religion can be a salve for the world. It doesn't only need to do the terrible things that religion sometimes does. And people do in the name of religion bad things, and people should also be doing really powerful, positive things in the name of religion in the world. You can walk through the world in any way that you want, but I believe that Judaism has a powerful teaching for us about how we can walk through the world meaningfully and in a way that lifts up the world and makes it better than we left it. So I'm hoping that we can engage with it more, that we don't just leave it by the wayside and say religion doesn't have anything for me. I'm hoping that people can find within Judaism the tools, the language, and the skills to be able to be who they need to be in the world.
I love it. Yeah, I so often when connect with people and we'll talk about Judaism, religion, and so often they'll say, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious because religion has such a bad rap, unfortunately, or just maybe historically, there are plenty of reasons that it could get that. And
Yeah.
so I love that you reframe that. A couple things I was thinking of as I'm watching you here. So I've experimented wearing a kippah, not wearing a kippah, hat, kippah, all sorts of different varietals, even putting on tefillin in a plane, which I don't recommend currently, but I've done that many times. And it always brings up a lot, internally and externally. So I'm curious, maybe you can share a story of you. So I'm just guessing you're wearing kippah out in public, having an experience that was positive, that maybe of recent times, or maybe it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think I've been wearing a kippah since I was like 8 years old. I think one day I wore it at school when I was growing up, and one day my mom drove me to tennis practice when I was 8, and she said, "Okay, you can take your kippah off for tennis practice," and I said, "No, I think I'll keep it on," and then it's stayed on all the time after that.
Oh,
The choice of an 8-year-old mind. But for me, that was the kippah was a reminder to myself that the world is greater than just me, that there's something above and around me that I can relate to, that there's something that I'm in connection with, both God and community around me. Um, and that was really powerful for me. And then also, I think, sometimes Jewish paraphernalia can be scary to people when they're walking around the street, and sometimes, like we said, it doesn't have the most positive connection for many people. But I often get into conversations with people, not as much lately because I'm not in public transportation places as much. But if I'm sitting in a train station, or I'm sitting in airports a lot, and people will see the kippah and they'll just come up and talk to me. And generally, that's a little strange for people to just have random conversations. People don't just go up to strangers all the time and have a conversation, but they do when I'm wearing a kippah. And I would say more than half the time, those conversations are positive. Sometimes they're a little intense or a little crazy, but sometimes people just want to have a conversation. And sometimes those people are Jewish, and sometimes those people are spiritual, like you said, and sometimes those people are just wondering what the Jewish answer to this or that is. And I don't know if I should be the representative for the Jewish people, but because I wear a kippah, I am.
yeah.
And so I try and be a proud and positive and good model of what it means to be a person in the world and a Jew in the world when I can be. And a kippah reminds me to do that, and connects me to people around me who've been doing this for hundreds and thousands of years. So I feel connected to my past, connected to my present, connected to community, and connected to God when I get to wear it, not just in my house.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've had, I would say 99% of the time, very positive experiences. I'll tell you a real
Yeah.
quick funny anecdote. So I played in bars for almost 20 years, like 6 nights a week. And there was a certain point of transition where I started playing Jewish music in bars and Jewish
Mm.
blues. And there was this very interesting time period. So I would hand out this flyer. It said, Saul K, pioneer of Jewish blues. And that in and of itself was always the beginning of a conversation. They're like, what does that even mean? Right. So I remember one time I was playing in Big Fork, Montana, literally in a barn with like peanut shells and straw on the ground. And I mean, it was very much off the grid. Okay. So I set up my thing, I do my thing, I'm playing, and there's this table in front of me, and this lady keeps kind of looking at me and like checking me out. And like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So finally, in between song, she comes up to me, she goes, I'm Jewish. like she was really scared to say it out loud. I said, it's okay. So am I. We're gonna make it. But it was just really sweet because it gave her permission to own it, which I think
I
is a
love
lot
that.
what you are
You
doing by representing.
Yeah, you just reminded me that I have actually given my CD to like at least 6 Uber and Lyft drivers, because that's one of the places where you're in conversation with a person for an extended period of time,
Yeah.
and generally they ask, "Oh, what do you do? Or why are you traveling? Or what's that guitar that you're putting in my trunk?" And I often will say I'm a rabbi or I'm a Jewish musician, and the conversation gets, "What is Jewish music? And what is that about? What are you doing? Are you writing words? Are you writing the words? Are you writing the music?" And then we put on the music in the car and we talk about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is great." And so I get to like share Jewish music and the thing that I'm trying to do with people who would have no access or no idea about even what this is, if I weren't getting into the conversation with them.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Talk to strangers, right? Talk
Yeah.
to strangers. This is how we build bridges. Okay, two more questions. So, first question is what is the most challenging? I know you're such a positive person, and like everyone feels like it's all sunshine and rainbows, and you just come in and bless congregations, and it's just like smooth sailing. But really, for people that are really thinking of doing this work, and particularly in the way that you do it, right? What's the most challenging part of it for you?
Um, there's a few things. One, like I said, I try and be very process oriented and talk to as many people as possible from the community. Sometimes communities aren't interested in being process oriented, and they say, "Hey, you're Josh Warshawsky. Just come in and do your thing, and it'll be great." And it's generally way worse than it would be if we were able to talk it through. Um,
Now,
so I think,
can I pause on that for a second? So, for
yeah,
someone that's listening that doesn't organically understand what process oriented, meaning when you're coming into a community, you're intentionally creating what you want to do with co-creating as opposed to just
Co-creating,
hearing it.
setting goals together,
Yeah.
deciding we want our takeaways to be, meeting with stakeholders, clergy, a committee, lay leaders, helping people understand and communicate what this is going to be versus just coming in and doing my thing. Because I can come in and do my thing and it's great, but it's never as great as being able to really think about it with people. And that's the other thing, is that it's really hard to translate and communicate exactly what it is that I do to the average person, let alone the average Jew. Um, People don't understand what sort of like liturgical music or prayer or worship music or music that's in Hebrew, what this is all about and how it could be meaningful to them. And my concerts, in some ways, it's like a concert, but it's also a study session. We're studying the midrashim, the stories that go between the texts. We're exploring it together. It's for me, a transformational experience, and I think it's really moving for the people who get to be in the room and experience it. But getting people in the room is difficult because it's hard to explain what it is that I'm trying to do. So that's what sort of our videos that we created with the album came out, so that we could share a little bit of at least sort of the music and what that's trying to do. Hopefully if people can see that and say, oh, that looks really cool, then they'll at least put themselves into the room. But getting people to come into the space is I think the biggest challenge that I have in doing this work, because I'm not the one on the ground building the relationships. I have to trust that the people who are there trust me enough and understand what I'm doing enough to communicate that and bring people together so that we can make more of an impact.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so important. And so if someone is listening to this and they're starting on the journey of touring around, what's a best practice for them to create that and to allow that conversation to happen in a non-threatening way to a community? Because they're bringing this person in and there's a great deal of trust involved. They're like opening up their space, they're opening up their sanctuary, their bima. And so how would you best prescribe to facilitate those conversations, and what works for you?
I'm trying something new over the last couple of weeks, actually. That was sort of initiated by the fact that I had a couple of really, really fantastic weekends, and then I tried to sit back and think about what made them so great and why were they so impactful, why did so many people come, and it was because of all these things that people gathered. The rabbi at one of the communities gathered people for months, once a month, to learn some of the music and build excitement. They had a whole music committee that was gathered together, and it's hard to ask people to come out Thursday night and then Friday night for services and Shabbat morning for services and Saturday night for a concert, but people came to every event because they knew that this was this immersive experience we were going to be creating together. So I wrote out a whole kit, a residency kit of things that you should know. I think this is what I would hope to bring. Here's all the information. Here's the kind of programs, a tentative schedule that we could do. But here's also what you can expect of me. That I'm going to give my all. I'm going to communicate with you. I'm going to meet with as many people as you want to meet with. I'm going to try and set goals with you in advance. These are all the things you can expect of me. But also there's a paragraph of what I can expect of you. And I actually think that that's been really positive, and communities have really taken to that, to noticing that it's not all about the artists that they're bringing in, but there's an expectation on them when they're bringing somebody in to be a good host. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is to communicate that to stakeholders in the community, to reach out beyond just your own synagogue and try and build relationships and bring people in to create an atmosphere that'll build success. And so communicating my expectations for myself and for them has actually been really positive.
I love it. I love it. It's great. Here's what you expect of me. This is what I expect of you. Great. So setting all that out.
Yeah.
Awesome. So real quick, just plug yourself. Where can people find you, and what's an easy way to access your works and your teaching?
Yeah, thank you. Anywhere you find your music, you can find my music, Josh Warshawsky. And if you go to my website, which is just my name, joshwarshawsky.com, I know it's hard to spell, but you can Google it and it'll probably get you close. The website is built so that every song has its own page with the video, the resources, free sheet music, teachings about the songs, explanations, so that you can use it in your community in the best possible way. Right? The music is meant to be shared. It's meant to be sung. It's meant to be prayed. So I want people to understand where it came from, why it was written, and how everything sort of fits together. So if you're looking for a place to explore a little bit more, that's the place to go.
Awesome. We'll definitely dig into all of his music. It is very good, and I do not say that lightly. Those my friends and musical colleagues that know me know that I don't give musical compliments lightly or other compliments. So if I say it, you can believe it, and it's really good. I was singing harmonies with the song that you were singing right away. It's like you have such a sweet key center and it's also a key that I love. So it's definitely music that people love harmonizing with. So one quick question I did want to ask you, when you were talking about creating music, you said we are doing this, right? So when you say we, is there like a Havarai ensemble or a band, or is it just you with some other artist? What do you mean by that?
The group that created the Chavirai Nevarech albums was me with a bunch of dear friends from all over the place that I brought together. Most of the people are Los Angeles based, but also from all over the country. And I co-write with mostly with my friend Colleen Deeker, who's a violinist and vocalist, and we travel around most weekends together to different places, getting to share and sing. And I've written a whole bunch of music together, and we're working on a couple more songs. And then when we travel around, I try and bring a quartet. So Colleen and I and my percussionist and a bass player. And so we're workshopping the music whenever we go somewhere, and we're working it and crafting it and exploring it and tweaking it. So that's the we of Chavirai Nevarech.
Awesome. Yeah, Colleen's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just wrapping up here, any last wishes, blessings, anything else you'd like to say to people as we are coming to a close here?
I'm grateful to you for doing this work. I think hearing stories of people's rabbinic paths and cantorial paths and just the things that draws people to clergy, I think is really important, especially nowadays when we're at in a time when we're just kind of struggling to bring people to this path. There are lots and lots of synagogues and communities and Jewish organizations that need clergy, and there aren't as many people who are as interested in doing that work. And I think it's really powerful work. I think it's really meaningful work. I love getting to do it with music, but I think there's so many ways to be a rabbi or a cantor or a clergy person, and so I'm excited that you're sharing that journey with people, and I hope that more people feel interested in this. And I would love to talk to anybody about this path or any potential Jewish career paths. I have those conversations with people all the time. It's something that I love doing, and I love getting to explore that with people. So I'm happy to be of help if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rabbi. I appreciate you. I appreciate you musically, appreciate you as a friend, and I just love seeing you shine out there. You know, it's just my greatest wish is that we would continue to raise the bar of prayer, of music, of community engagement, and of teaching people and sharing with people how much depth there really is in this tradition. Right? Like I like to think of Judaism as this incredible buffet, and you can
Mm.
keep coming back as much as you want, and there's so many different dishes, and there's so many different flavors, and there's so many ways to engage. And I just really appreciate what you bring to the Jewish world, and I just want Hashem to bless you with continued parnasa and simcha and shalom and happiness in your home and on the road. So with
Amen.
that, ladies and gentlemen, we will wrap up the first episode of the Holy Sparks podcast. Tune in next week for someone good.